welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most enduring, wildly fascinating pieces of modern folklore in American history. Picture this. It's 1943. The whole world is completely engulfed in the Second World War. And amidst all that immense pressure and super tight secrecy, legend has it that the United States military attempted an experiment so absolutely audacious, it pushed the boundaries of known physics. Our story today centers around a ship called the USS Eldridge, and we're going to unpack the entire thing, the myth, the reality, and everything in between.
So, did the US Navy actually teleport a ship? I mean, it's a question ripped straight out of a science fiction novel, right? But believe it or not, this is the core mystery we're unraveling today. Did the military, in this desperate bid to gain the upper hand during a massive global conflict, truly push beyond the laws of nature to achieve the absolute impossible? This one single question has sparked thousands of theories over the years, and to really understand why, we've got to look at the supposed science that started it all. Well, the legend kicks off with something called Project Rainbow. This was a legendary, top-secret military project with a pretty staggering theoretical goal. They were allegedly trying to take Albert Einstein's unified field theory and apply it directly to military technology. Basically, they wanted to literally bend light around a ship. The aim was to make a massive naval vessel completely invisible to the human eye and, crucially, to confuse or entirely evade enemy radar systems. It's this brilliant blend of high-level theoretical physics and wartime tactical necessity that grounds this whole myth in just enough pseudoscience to make it deeply, deeply compelling. Okay, let's set the scene. It is a brisk October morning back in 1943, right in the middle of the bustling Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Witnesses, well, if you choose to believe their accounts anyway, claimed they watched as these massive high-energy magnetic generators were activated right on the deck of the USS Eldridge. The tension in the air must have been absolutely palpable. You got this massive destroyer escort, a full crew of sailors, and highly experimental technology powering up right out in the open in the middle of one of the busiest shipyards in the country. And then, the impossible reportedly happened. Out of nowhere, the USS Eldridge is completely enveloped in this strange, thick, greenish-gray fog. According to the lore, to the sheer astonishment of everyone watching, the vessel didn't just vanish from the blips of a radar screen, it actually began to physically fade from view entirely, just totally consumed by this eerie, unnatural mist. But the story definitely doesn't stop at invisibility. Oh no, it builds into this chaotic, seemingly impossible journey. First, the ship vanishes from Philly in this blinding flash of light. Next, it allegedly teleports hundreds of miles away, popping up momentarily down in Norfolk, Virginia. And finally, it abruptly snaps right back to its original location in Philadelphia. So in a matter of moments, a multi-ton destroyer escort supposedly defied all known laws of time and space.
Section 1. The terrifying aftermath, the human cost of hubris. You see, the legend of the Philadelphia experiment is not just some cool story about advanced technology. It's a story of catastrophic human suffering when the USS Eldridge snapped back into reality.
When the ship reappeared, the men were said to be in a state of absolute psychological and physical horror. I mean, we are talking pure nightmare fuel here. Stories claim some of the crew were found partially fused directly into the solid metal structure of the ship's hull. Others had just entirely succumbed to severe bouts of madness. But probably the most terrifying detail of all, some sailors were supposedly physically unstable, literally flickering in and out of reality, as if their very molecular structure had been permanently unmoored. It's this specific, grisly imagery that really cemented the event as a dark piece of modern folklore. It turned a military experiment into a powerful cautionary tale about the extreme dangers of humanity trying to control forces we just don't understand. All right, let's hit pause for a second and do a quick reality check here. On one side, we have the legend, teleportation, strange greenish fogs, and men turning into human metal hybrids, which, let's be honest, is a pretty absurd thing to happen to a multi-ton battleship. But on the other side, we have the cold, hard reality, routine naval engineering, and a process called degaussing. So let's step out of the sci-fi shadows and into some actual naval history.
First and foremost, the official historical record is very clear on this. The United States Navy has spent years investigating its own records, and they consistently maintain that no such experiment ever took place. No teleportation, no invisibility cloaks. Actually, historians and naval experts point to a much more mundane, yet absolutely fascinating explanation for where these wild legends really came from.
To understand the reality of this situation, we need to understand a very real, well-documented naval engineering procedure that was used extensively during the war. It's called degaussing, and it involved literally wrapping these massive ships in thousands of feet of heavy electric cables in order to demagnetize them. So it wasn't about bending light at all. It was entirely about altering magnetic fields.
Here is how this super grounded piece of engineering actually worked to protect these vessels. First, you take the ship and you wrap it in all those thick electric cables. Then you run a really powerful electrical current right through them, which effectively neutralizes the magnetic signature of the giant steel hull. And the ultimate goal here, to safely bypass deadly, highly explosive magnetic sea mines that were triggered the second they sensed the magnetic fields of a passing ship. It was brilliant, totally life-saving engineering that protected vessels without having to break a single law of physics.
So, how exactly do we get from heavy electrical cables to teleporting ships and vanishing sailors? Honestly, it boils down to a pretty simple equation. Wartime paranoia plus real engineering equals a modern myth. Imagine you're living in 1943. You're surrounded by the daily terrors of a global world war and extreme government secrecy. Then you see these strange, highly technical procedures, like entire ships being wrapped up in sparking electrical cables, happening right out in the open in the shipyards. Well, it doesn't take long for a fertile, anxious imagination to take those genuine, routine naval operations and warp them into a legendary sci-fi monster of a story. But knowing the truth doesn't really seem to stop the story from being told. Why does the Philadelphia experiment still fascinate us so much over 8 decades later? Because it represents a really powerful idea, a nexus between true science and the boundless reach of human possibility. Whether you view it as some massive, sprawling government cover-up or just a total masterpiece of 20th century myth-making, we're drawn to it. We deeply want to believe that the ultimate secrets of time and space might actually be within our grasp. Officially, the USS Eldridge is just a destroyer escort. But in the annals of conspiracy, man, it is immortalized forever as the ship that touched the impossible. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've just seen how the intense secrecy of the 1940s birthed a legend that completely refuses to die. So take a look around at our world today with our rapid advancements in AI, quantum computing, and totally classified aerospace programs. Ask yourself, what modern secrets are breeding tomorrow's myths? Down in the shadows of our current history, what impossible stories are taking on a life of their own right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep questioning the world around you and, as always, keep exploring.